All right, what's going on? Guess who's back live and in living color? Got my Adidas classic retro sweatshirt, horns honking in the parking lot, Jamaicans walking around in the lobby. We're back. It's awesome. It's great. Welcome. I had an awesome time yesterday on Melissa Wade in the Waters, On the Light. What was it? Working Mom Wednesdays. Answering Working Mom Wednesdays, talking about dating your mate and answering questions. And it was really cool. To be totally honest, I did not know that they were recording me Facebook Live the whole time. And they told me, I just don't think I really was paying attention. In my head, I thought they were only recording me when I was live on the air. I really did think I was just off the air and the other times I was talking. So that was some real Past Andy live, raw and uncut stuff. And I haven't rewatched it because I don't even really want to know what all I said. But anyway, it got my juices flowing to kind of be back with everybody here on the Third Degree. And want to dedicate just a little bit of time just to answer questions on just about anything. Here for you, no doubt about it. Before I get into it, let me just say, I'm still only in season 7 on Game of Thrones. I'm not caught all the way up. So, spoiler alerts. I have episode 5, 6, and 7 of season 7. I still have 3 more in season 7. So I'm behind. And a part of the reason why I do that is because I just refuse to be in suspense for years at a time. I can't handle it. If something's happening to Khaleesi, I can't wait for a year to figure out what's going to happen. I almost want to just let the show finish and then I can watch it all out. But it's a great show. And I'm excited about the opportunity to talk. We've got a relationship conference that's coming up at the end of the year. We don't do it every year, but we are doing it this year. It's not just for married people. It's for anybody that's in a relationship. It's for anybody that's thinking about being in a relationship seriously. And it's going to be really, really great. It's happening in September. And we're going to be talking about it more and more, flashing it up here as we're doing this Third Degree stuff. But we are ready to get down into it. So hopefully we got some questions.
First question. Do you have advice for 30 to 40-year marriages where the couples are having issues?
I think that it's very interesting when people are married for a long time. Sometimes I think that we think, oh, well, people that have been together for a while, so we expect them to kind of know each other, have it all figured out. I know as someone who's been married about to be 28 years. I was married in 91. So what is it, 28 years? Wow. So as someone who's been married 25 years plus, for someone that's been married 30 years, 40 years, I know that for any of you that may be watching or listening to this even later, podcast or whatever, and you're thinking, wow, right, why... Somebody that's been together that long, they have it figured out. They know each other. They're in a groove. Plus, you're old. I mean, if you've been married 30 years, 40 years, unless you got married when you were 10, if you've been married for 30 years or 40 years, then you're probably 50 or you're probably 60. And at this point, just give up. Just get your house in order. You're about to die. Why are you having problems? But I will say that as someone that has been married for a longer period of time, a part of the challenge that happens is that your needs change. And if you had a good marriage, then you were communicating to each other a bit of what your needs were. And you can get into a little bit of a groove around meeting each other's needs because that's the job to some extent. You definitely can go through this kind of middle ground place where you're not really even communicating that much about your needs. And so people's needs are going unmet and they don't communicate about it, especially guys. And it but then it's absolutely also possible for your needs just to change. And what you're looking for, what you needed is now different. And either A, people refuse to communicate it, or B, it's too difficult for someone to make that change to now meet the needs of the. It's why if someone gets divorced and later in life and then they get remarried, they end up marrying a totally different person. It's not because the first person was just such this huge mistake. It's just that their needs have changed. I think if you've been married 30 years, if you've been married 40 years, then you need to sit down and you need to have a realistic, no joke, heart-to-heart conversation about what's important to you to happen in your relationship. I think that there's a ditch on either side of the road. I've said this a bunch of times. And I think that we have a tendency, especially in America, to get in one ditch or the other. There was a time when it was all, to the right, it was all about duty. Marriage was just about duty. Marriage was just about the roles you played. Marriage was just about the job and the commitment to the institution of marriage itself. This is like my honey water. So it's almost like I'm committed to the institution. This is not beer. This is warm honey water. It looks, it's not. Okay, I don't drink. but the institution to marriage itself, I think now we're kind of and my point is that the ditch on the right side is, yep, people are committed to the institution of marriage, the idea of marriage, and even church supported the idea of marriage, the institution of marriage, more than whether or not it was effective. Now we're kind of in this whole other ditch on the left side where it's like no one's really thinking about marriage. They'll think about marriage if they really love somebody. So it's almost like now like, oh, well, I've met this guy and you know what? I'm thinking about marriage. Or, I've met this chick and she's just really great. And you know what? She actually has me thinking about marriage. The challenge of that is it's difficult to do marriage if you can only do it with one person. And what I mean by that is, let's fix it. What I mean by that is there's going to be a part of you being effective at being a good wife if you're committed to being a good wife and not just being a good wife to Joe. There's going to be there's an aspect of being successful and being a good husband if you've got an idea in your head of like, yeah, I want to be a good husband. And so beyond just being a good husband to marry, I want to be a good husband, period. And I'm committed to the institution of it beyond just how I feel about you. And so I think that having some conversations around the role and duty and the aspect of meeting each other's needs, part of it is important, especially if your needs have changed. And if you've been married for 30 to 40 years and you're not that happy, you need to talk about what it is that it's going to take for you to be happy, and both people need to be as flexible as possible to adapt and change so that you can stay together, because it's sad to lose it after all that time. I kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that there's a timer. That's good. It's like, okay, stop. There's your 5 minutes. It's up.
All right, next question. Are you cheering for the Bruins, the hockey team that's in Boston?
I was born in Philly, raised in Boston. I lived in Boston for quite a bit of my life. I can't say most of my life now because that's not true. I haven't lived in Boston for over 20 years now. So I've lived half my life in Boston, almost half my life now living here in North Carolina. When I did live in Boston, I wasn't necessarily really a hockey fan. I'm a black person. If you can't see me, if you're listening to this, don't let my erudition and my articulation and my range of vocabulary fool you. I am a black person. So I didn't really watch hockey, really. When I was playing basketball in college, and let's not get it twisted. I wasn't some amazing D1 player. I was a good little D3 bench player playing basketball in college. But the college I went to, the hockey team was good, and I went to some games, and it made me understand it a little bit better. But I don't know a lot of black people that are really hockey fans. I guess it's possible. Hockey's Oh, you love hockey, sweetheart? Listen, quite honestly, when I got into it and really started watching it, really understood the whole thing about the blue line and being off sides and clearing the puck and the puck's got to go in before the other players. I kind of understood the challenge of it. It's a cool sport, and it's hard to score. It's you know, am I cheering for the Bruins? Sure. As much as I cheer for any hockey team, I couldn't name you 10 teams that play hockey. What is the North Carolina teams? The Hurricanes? Okay, the Hurricanes, the Bruins, the Toronto Maple Leafs, probably. Tampa Bay Lightning, is that a hockey team? Yeah. I know the New York Rangers, right? The Rangers, no, the Islanders. Islanders. But is it Rangers too? The Rangers is based. Anyway, my point is, you can tell how much am I really a hockey fan? Not that much. If I'm going to cheer for a team, sure, I'll cheer for the Bruins. I will admit I'm a little salty because none of the teams were winning in Boston until I left. Till I left, all of a sudden Boston's become some city of champions, not till I left. And it's made my family feel like I'm a jinx, and maybe I am. Although I will say I didn't even watch the game last night, so you can't blame it on me that they lost. And that Greek Freak kid is just really good. So anyway, I do still cheer for the Boston teams, the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Celtics, the Bruins, although I will admit that I do it with a little bit of an attitude because it's like, what are y'all trying to say? Once I moved away from Boston, then the curse got broken and the Red Sox won. The Celtics started winning. Garnett and them came there and they started winning. Patriots, who had never won anything ever. I graduated from high school in '86, okay? I watched them get literally eaten, not destroyed, eaten by the Chicago Bears. I mean, just knife and fork. I watched that game. I was in high school. The Patriots went on this dynastic run to all these Super Bowl wins with me not in the city anymore. And I feel some kind of way about that. I take that personally. It hurts my feelings that they waited for me to leave. And now my family and my friends, everybody thinks I'm a jinx, and maybe I am. But I do watch the games. So there's that. I watch the Bruins, but only at playoff time. I haven't watched a game this year yet. I don't know who anybody is. Chara still on the team? I don't know.
Okay, next question. Hey, Pastor Andy, do you feel there should be boundaries when it comes to co-parenting, especially if the other partner is in a relationship? And now I feel as if our relationship or co-parenting relationship is changing because we can't communicate as often because of this new partner.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most challenging dynamics in the 21st century today is kind of the role of the parent, the role of the child, the issue of the single mother, especially within the African-American community right now. You know, this weekend is Mother's Day weekend. Here at World Overcomers, we make a big deal of single mothers. We feel like, hey, if you're married, then your children and your husband ought to make a big deal of Mother's Day. But the single mother, who really is there to really make a big deal of her? So when we're talking about single mothers, when we're talking about divorce, the impact that has on the family, when we're talking about the whole redefinition of the family, it is a very interesting time to be alive. If you have a child with someone that you're not together with anymore, that dynamic, believe me, it can be a challenging enough dynamic just having conversations about a kid and you're both in the same house together and living with each other, raising a kid. That can be a challenge. My wife and I have had issues with each other over kids that we're raising in our own house and we're still married, let alone trying to communicate with someone that you don't really talk to that much anymore or like anymore or love anymore, or you really don't want to see the person at all anymore. You don't want to talk to that person because you're divorced. You don't want to talk to that person because you're not together anymore. Having conversations with that person about your child that you have together, That's a challenge. And for people to do it, you have to be as mature as possible. For you to do it, you have to have forgiven that person as best you can. You're not going to be able to really have clear, honest, open conversations with your baby's mother or baby's father or ex-husband or ex-wife about the best for the child if you're still bringing in pain that you have with that person. You understand? If you're still upset at your ex-husband, you're not in a good situation to judge him as a father because you're mad anyway. If you're upset with your ex-wife and you can't stand the sight of her, you're not really in a good position to judge her as a mother. She may be a better mother than you think, but you don't like her. And so you have to be very, very careful that you're not using the child to kind of somehow secretly punish the other parent. People do that all the time, and that's not fair to the kid. And both people do it. It's not just women that do it. Men do it too. Men and women both. They're just making it difficult. They just make it sticky. They just make it funky. They just make it weird because they're trying to win in some way. And you have to realize that the only person that really takes the L is the kid. Kid is the one that gets hurt the most. So it's just not smart to do. But parents still do it. People do it. They use their kids to hurt each other, and it's just a bad scene. It's not a good thing. I hate to just come off misogynistic because I'm not trying to be misogynistic, and I'm not a misogynist. I have daughters, and I'm on their side. But I will say that considering the fact that fathers and good fathers especially are in high demand and are a rarity, you have a real serious problem as a woman if you are keeping your child from his father and his father wants to be in his life. You need to get over yourself. And I'm not saying quality mothers aren't rare. Quality mothers are great. It's Mother's Day weekend. Praise God for all the mothers. But if you've got a guy who works, got a job, is serious, cares about his child, and you're making it difficult because of your issue with him, you need prayer. You need Jesus. Because the leading factor in the success of any child is the involvement of their father. It's just the facts. Go read the stats. Google it. Every major negative statistic, high school, prison, pregnancy, all of it, drug use, the leading percentage factor is the father involved. So if you and that man are not together anymore, for whatever reason, if he is any kind of halfway decent kind of any kind of dude, don't nobody care about who he's dating, don't nobody care about who he's sleeping with. We're talking about, does he care about his child? Does he work? Does he pay? Does he support? If you block him from his child, shame on you. Shame on you. And if you block, but everybody needs to grow up. I'm always conscious of the balance of it. It's not a smart thing to be dogging your child's mother in front of the child. Everybody just needs to grow up and put the need of the child above your individual feelings. To me, that's what it means to be a parent. The kids come first when it comes to what's best for them. They don't always come first, but they come first in terms of what's best for them. We just go too far with it. Again, it's a ditch on either side of the road, and we just put kids first in everything, but kids don't come first in everything. That's out of order. But when it comes to what's best for them, then they need to be considered as to what's best for them, especially in this kind of a situation. So it is possible to do it. I don't even know what the stats are in terms of how many people are doing it and doing it well, but it is possible to do it. But it's going to take maturity. It's going to take forgiveness. It's going to take Jesus if you don't have it. And if you don't have Jesus, then you better have all the qualities of kingdom. You're going to have to love. You're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to be forgiving. You're going to have to grow up. You're going to have to be kind. And you're going to have to be caring about your kid. And be like, yes, I just don't want to make it any harder for my child to see their father than it already is. I don't want to make it any more difficult for my child to have a relationship with their mother than it already is. And the last thing I want to do is that I blocked it, or I slowed it down, or I made it less effective. And I've just had way too many interactions as a pastor, as a leader, as a counselor, talking to people who are they're just being funky and sticky and rocks and stones and sticks in the mud, and they just make it difficult for their child's father to see the kid. They just make it difficult for the child's mother to see the kid. They just do. They're not accommodating, and they end up slowing the process down. And the only person that really loses in that is the kid. All right. That's all I have to say about that.
All right. So recently, Ayesha Curry was on the Red Table Talk. So what is your take on her comments on still wanting to be desired by the opposite sex other than her husband? Is that a normal feeling when you're married?
Wow. You know, I didn't see that. I think that it's interesting. I think that, you know, for us to really talk about this, we almost have to talk about the different perspectives of men and women, especially when it comes to attractiveness. Because I'm not saying that women aren't interested in their men being attractive, but I don't know if women are necessarily interested in other women wanting their man. I think that women don't necessarily trust other women, and I think women it doesn't give them a good feeling. So if I come home and I'm like, oh my gosh, this chick, me coming home and telling my wife, hey, this chick was hitting on me in the airport today. My wife is not your average chick. She kind of wants to hear about it a little bit, but not too much. If I tell her too much of it or too much of the details, she'll almost kind of start being like, are you trying to say something to me? Like, what are you trying to say? It doesn't necessarily give a woman a good feeling. I think guys are kind of the exact opposite. I think if you're a normal, healthy, mature man and you know you're doing right and you're only intimidated by other men's interest in your woman if you're not doing right. But I think that no dude wants to be with a woman that don't nobody else want. It's kind of a part of it. I want to walk in with somebody on my arm and people be like, oh my God, who is that? So guys, in a sense, want to be with someone that other people desire, especially when you're younger. I think when you get older, I think that becomes less important to you. I think when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I thought a lot about walking in a room with the fly girl, heads burned, eyes turned when she comes into place, perfume from France, put you in a trance. I'm so old. I think I was thinking about that. Like, yeah, I want to show up to my prom with a girl and people be like, oh my God. Like, I think that was a part of what I thought about, the girl being a trophy on my arm. As you get older and mature, that's not as important. That's not as important to me. What's important to me is that I find her attractive. Ayesha Curry's still a baby. Is she even 30 years old? So she's still at this point in which I think she has a good perspective. I think it is wise, especially if you're an NBA wife, I think it is wise to not just let yourself go. I think it is wise to keep yourself up. I think it is wise to have your kids and then eat your food. I'm sure she's got a chef and a personal trainer and everything else to get it back to popping because her husband is Steph Curry. He's one of the most famous guys on the planet, and she wants to keep looking like a snack to him. So that's smart. And I think that if no one ever notices her, then it's going to make her wonder, like, am I still snackable? Does anybody want to stick their stick in my cheese? And I think that's a good thing to be aware of. I don't think that means that she wants to have an affair or she wants to be with other people. I just think that as a woman, it's a good question. Is anybody else looking at you? And I don't think you should only want your husband to think you look good. You need to be, especially if you're young, you need to be aware of the fact that guys are comparable by nature. And I don't mind what I have as long as I like what I have. I don't mind what you have as long as I like what I have. That's how guys are, especially when they're younger. If we sit down to order food and I'm sure this happens all the time. If this dude orders a burger and I end up ordering salmon, and then when his burger comes, it looks really good and my salmon is just kind of dry, then I'm kind of like, man, I should have got a burger. I'm going to look at what he has and I'm going to look at what I have. And now if If I have ribs and my ribs are killing, then I'm like, oh yeah, your burger looks okay, but I love my ribs. I don't mind what you have as long as I like what I have. So since I like what I have and I'm satisfied with what I have, then I'm cool with what you have. One of my best friends and I are talking about this all the time, just about how men are comparing and the right and wrong of it. And you can get in, it's one of the things in my book, and somebody grab a copy of my marriage book. But one of the things that I talk about in my marriage book in some of the initial chapters is, especially I'm aiming this at women and I'm saying to them, get over yourself if you're expecting me to talk about what's fair, because I'm not talking about what's fair. I'm talking about what is, what's real. So if you're like, oh, but that's not fair, it's a double standard. Yeah, I don't really know what to tell you. It's a double standard. And there's enough double standards. Yeah, you can give me there's enough double standards to go around for everybody. There's starting to be more. There used to be a time when the double standards just applied to women, but they apply to men too. We're at a point now in which there is a double standard for men as well as for women. There used to be way more for women than for men, but now there's enough to go around. But I think that if you're a woman, you need to be more aware of your appearance. I'm not saying a guy doesn't need to be aware of his appearance, but men are more visually stimulated than women are. I'm not saying women aren't visually stimulated, but not as much as men are. And if you're a woman and you don't care how you look, you either need to be okay about being by yourself or you're just unwise. Strive to be the best you can be. You don't have to look like Halle Berry. Just don't look like Marion Barry. I've been saying that joke forever. People are like, who's Marion Barry? Look him up. He's like, it's a guy. You know, nobody's saying, I think women get stuck and get all caught up. And I hope Ayesha Curry isn't getting caught up in comparing herself to other women, because that's not the job. The job is just for her to look the best she can look. And after having 2 children or 3 children, however many she said, 3. So now she's had her 3rd child. Did she finally give him a son? Hallelujah. So maybe they can stop. But it's like she's had 3 kids. And so now she can drive herself crazy comparing herself to everybody else. But that's not the thing to do. Compare yourself to yourself. Pull out pictures of yourself in high school and get back to that if that looked good. Compete against you. Don't compete against it. Nobody's asking you to compete with Ariana Grande. Compete with yourself and strive to be the best that you can be. Stop asking us how you look and ask yourself how you look. You know if that suit makes you look big or not. You know. You know. You know. I think you can just stick your head in the sand and just be like, oh, well, I want a guy who loves me for me on the inside. And you know what? You can find that guy, but if he never looks at your outside, then he may be gay. I love my woman. I love LaShawn for her inside. I really do. She is strong, smart, intelligent, hardworking, giving, loving. And she's 51 years old. I don't expect her to be 21. I don't expect her to be 25. I don't expect her to be 31. I don't expect her to be 41. That'd be great, but that's not what I expect at this point. I get it. She's 51 years old. And I love her for her inside. And right now, her world is much more in the home. She's got this whole NGO that she's running, and she really works from home a lot more now. There was a time when she was basically running operations at World Overcomers, and she's just not doing that anymore. We've got a lot of really other good qualified people that are doing it. So she's at home a lot. She's probably watching or listening to this right now. At least I hope she is. Shout out. Oh, when I shouted my mom out the other day, she was telling me she had just tuned in. She said, I just turned it on when you shouted me. But honestly, you know, when I get home today and see LaShawn later, it would be nice if she had a face on. That, you know, I mean, I'm cool if she don't got it on, but it'd be nice. It'd be nice. That would be nice. Just a little something. Just, you know, something. And it didn't have to be full regalia, but, you know, something. I'm not asking for eyelashes, and Jarrell's not to me. I'm just asking. I'm saying something, just a little bit, just a little something. Aware of me. I'm not trying to show her off to anybody else. It's just what I like, what I want to see. I think I used to think about that, but I don't think about that anymore now. That in my fit, I don't care. If when LaShawn and I went to Europe for our 25th year anniversary and we were in Europe the whole time, I wasn't necessarily thinking about, oh, other people are seeing her and they're thinking about what. I think guys do think that. And I think the women who are like, oh, he won't even hold my hand in the mall. I see guys walking with women in the mall, and I don't know if I would hold their hand. I don't know if I don't, and it's horrible. I don't know if I would want anybody to know I was with you either. So maybe that's not just he's trying to keep his options open and trying to be a player. Maybe. Or maybe you're a little embarrassing. You're eating cookies while we're walking in the mall. Maybe that's embarrassing. I know this is some hard truth today. So I think that if you're a woman, I think being a woman, and I'm not one, thank you, Jesus, because I admire women because it's such a complicated thing. It's like you're smart, you're intelligent, you're so gifted, and you want to be valued for those things, and that is important. But if no one ever notices you or ever thinks you're cute or ever says, wow, you look nice today, that bothers you. Guys can live in a world in which no one ever says, you look nice today. No one says to me, ooh, you look nice today. I like that red jacket. It's just, I'm dressing for myself. So I think it's a balance. I think it's a fine line as a woman. And I think as a woman, you want to be loved for you, but you want your man to think you look good. And so I'm trying to help you. You want your man to think you look good, then look good. Don't force him into lying. Let him be able to tell the truth and be like, wow, I like, your hair looks good like that. I'll say this and I'll shut up. I was in the airport and I was going through, and somebody that was there at TSA, it was a woman. And she said, hey, Pastor Andy. And I said, hey. Before I even got there, she said, hey, Pastor Andy. I said, hey. And she said something to me to the effect of, I don't know, our kids went to school together or something, I don't know. And I was like, oh, wow, I meet so many people, and I don't mean to be rude about it. I just meet hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people every day, every year. And so I feel bad about it. So I was just like, oh, wow, you know. But then she was just like, yeah, I cut all my hair off. You know, like, yeah, like you don't recognize me because I have cut all my hair off. I'm bald. And she had a low cut like mine. I just cut all my hair off. And I noticed, I looked down, I saw a ring on her finger. So I was just like, oh, wow. My response was, hey, as long as your man's cool with it. That's, because I know people listen to me or think, oh, Pastor Andy likes hair. You ain't got to think about what I like because you ain't married to me. My response was, I said it to her, well, as long as your man is happy. And she was kind of like, well, I mean, he'll get over it. And I just was like, okay, can I just have my ID? Because if I stay here and keep talking to you, I'm sorry. And if you know that person or if you know somebody like that, a woman like that, she is a fool. You're a fool if you're like that. You're asking for trouble. Okay. This thing keeps beeping. Let me tell it to shut up. Next question. Sorry.
Can you give me some tips on being a dad in another state? Trying to be close to my son. However, his mom is in another broken marriage, so he has a hard time connecting because he sees another broken marriage.
I think that right now, the thing about even in another state, in long distance relationships, I've got several people that I know who are in relationships that they don't live in the same state. One of the great things that's amazing about the tech today is just that there's enough technology that really can help you if you're not in the same place as a person that you love. I mean, you literally can FaceTime with a person. You can't necessarily hug your kid, but you can FaceTime with your kid. At this point, being in another state is not a barrier to having a relationship with someone. And if you love your child, if you live in Texas and your kid lives in North Carolina, you can still talk to your kid every day. You could still FaceTime with your kid on a regular basis. Through so many devices, through computers, even if you're like, I don't want to get him a phone. You can get him a good enough laptop, a good enough Mac, and you can Skype. Is Skype still even around, Jess? You can Skype. You can go old school. You can Facebook Live with your kid. Even if your kid's like, even if you're like, oh, he's 6, I can't give him a phone. Still, you can be like, yeah, but I'm going to give him a computer. I'm going to put a certain amount of parental blocks on it. But me and him are going to have a time in which we talk every Friday from 6 to 7. I'm telling you right now, there are parents who live with their kid who don't have a time of talking to their kid every week face to face. So don't let the fact that you're not in the same state be an excuse. The other thing is that everybody always sees stuff broken. Just because everybody sees broken stuff doesn't mean that they don't have a desire for something that's whole or they can't have something that's whole. My wife is probably one of the best wives and mothers I know. And I'm not saying that because I have to say it because I ain't scared of Sean. I've traveled around the country. I know everybody, just about everybody knows me, all the preachers I meet. I've only seen a couple of wives that are as good as mine. Just a few. My wife's probably about the best wife and mom I know. And her mother was an alcoholic. She was raised in the projects. She was raised by an aunt who was on drugs and cousins who were all doing drugs. She slept on a couch. She didn't even have her own bedroom. She went to the Burke High School in Boston. All she saw was brokenness. She saw her mother beat. She saw her mother abandoned. She was abandoned herself. So you say your life has been one big mistake and happiness is always far away. There's one thing you should remember. No matter what your situation, there is no excuse that is good enough for you to lose your soul. That's an old school Commission song. There's no excuse. Don't worry. Just because your son has seen brokenness doesn't mean that he won't ever have anything whole. You get whole, and he'll see whole. But there are people watching right now whose families, people, parents, folks around them were broken. That does not mean you have to be broken. You can get to wholeness. And you can be the one person in your family that's whole. And your family will be proud of you. To point to other people's brokenness as a reason for your brokenness is an excuse if you don't rise above it. Now, it could be an explanation, and we can explain it and say, oh, well, his grandfather went to jail, his great-grandfather went to jail, his father went to jail, so now he is going to jail. But going to jail is not a DNA trait. It still comes down to choices. It still comes down to decisions. And I get it. I'm an African-American man. I understand the education system, the judicial system stacked against us. I totally get it. But it's still not an excuse. That's good enough for you to lose your life and lose your soul. Don't be afraid. On Mother's Day weekend, there are women who are raising sons by themselves. I'm telling all of you right now that are watching me, it is absolutely possible for you to raise a quality boy by yourself. Absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. Matter of fact, where would black people be if women couldn't raise quality men? We'd be doomed because we've been battling this lack of father thing for generations. So every dude that's messed up, and I know I just finished saying the lead statistic, no doubt about it, but I'm still saying that doesn't mean that your kid can't be in the 30 percentile. They can be if you do what you're supposed to do. Kevin Durant said his mom is the real MVP. She is. No doubt. No doubt. She did what she had to do to get those boys into a situation in which they could be successful. It's absolutely possible. Hats off to her. And hats off to any mother, especially the African-American mothers, but any mother right now that is out there doing it on their own and at work and then got to leave and pick the kids up and then take them home and cook. Do not be weary in your well-doing. You will reap a harvest if you faint not, but you just can't faint. But I think that what ends up happening is we end up kind of like looking for excuses, and it's like we want to be like, oh, well, now he's seeing brokenness in her. Also, now she's remarried and that marriage isn't working. That shouldn't surprise you. If her relationship with you didn't work, then maybe there's a reason why it's not working with another dude. She needs to really check herself because now this is dude number 2. So she either married a person just like you or something's wrong with her. But none of that is an excuse for your son to end up a womanizer or end up knocking chicks up or end up being crazy or not graduating from school. Or we list these things as an explanation, but they're not an excuse. Oh, well, he's going through a lot at home right now. No doubt about it. But are we going to allow that to be an excuse for a lack of success? We cannot. We have too much at stake, especially black people. We have too much at stake. I don't care about your independent educational assessment, your IEP. Praise God for it, but you better rise above that IEP. We have too much at stake for black men to be like, oh, I have an IEP. One of my sons had an IEP, and I was like, and I'll beat your behind every day. Don't act like you can't do what the teacher says. If that teacher says sit down, you can sit down. You know how I know it? Because you're looking at me right now, and I'm telling you to sit down, and you're sitting down. I was like, no, you don't want to sit down. And you know what's going to happen if you keep acting like that? They're going to put you in a class with kids who really can't sit down. Because there are kids who really can't sit down. There are kids who they really are special, and they really can't understand. That's not you. No, you just want to go outside when you want to go outside. And they're calling you, and you are not answering. And if you keep acting like that, they're going to think that that's how you really are. But I know that you're not that way because I'm saying your name, and you're looking at me. Oh, we did an assessment on him, and he has an IEP. I was like, and? So now what? And right now, that kid is an A student. So and he still has an IEP, but it doesn't matter. It's not an excuse for you to go for the best and believe for the best. All right.
So, how's the macro life going? Has cookout gotten in the way?
Let me tell you something. My wife and my daughter especially, my daughter Kayla, doing this whole macro nutrition. If you've seen my daughter recently, if you don't, you can Kayla Thompson on Instagram. She's a singer. She's a songwriter. She's really, really gifted and talented. may end up being bigger than all of us. Has really gone through a total physical transformation, and a lot of it has to do with her diet and her macros, this whole macronutrition thing. My wife was doing it for a bit. My wife's getting back on it. They tried to get me to do the macros thing. Something has happened to me since I turned 50. Two things. Number one, my mouth needs taste. I don't know if anybody else, your mouth needs taste. My mouth needs taste. Now, I know there's some of you who are like, I'm 18 and my mouth needs taste. Well, my mouth needs a certain amount of taste. It's challenging. There was a time when I could just be like, yep, salad, no dressing. I'm good. When I was in my 20s, when I was in my 30s, probably when I should have been eating dressing, see? But I was just like, no dressing on my salad. No, thank you. Now, when I shouldn't really be eating a lot of dressing, I need the dressing. I think the other thing that's happened to me, and I'm praying that this doesn't keep happening, but there was a time when when I played basketball in college, I was probably 185, maybe 190 pounds. So there was a time in my life where if I wasn't 200 pounds, I just didn't think I looked good. Now, I don't know, my eyes have adjusted. I think I look okay at 215, 210. 240, no. But when I look at myself at 210, I'm right probably about 210 pounds right now. For 50, about to be 51, I don't know. So I only let myself have a cookout shake once a month. I know I talk about cookout a lot. I joke a lot about cookout, say from the pulpit. Everybody connects with it. I really don't let myself have cookout more than once a month. Once a month, I let myself have a shake. I save it up for when people are coming to town. My brother did his live recording, so I was just like, oh, every time I felt that longing, every time I got to shake, someone slapping my veins, I just was like, it's okay because everybody's coming to town. I'm going to take people to get a cookout shake. I'll get my cookout shake then. My sons graduate from high school at the end of this month. People are coming to town for their graduation. I'm saving up my cookout shakeness for that. I really only let myself have one a month. I joke a lot from the pulpit or on this show about food, but honestly, I've always been health conscious, and I don't eat a lot of bread. I don't eat a lot of rice. I don't eat a lot of pasta. I don't eat a lot of sugar. I don't drink a lot of juice. I mostly drink water. This honey water is kind of a voice thing. I don't eat a lot of stuff that's white. And I recently have started boxing, I joined this kind of boxing gym, and it is a killer workout. It's a killer workout. And it's mostly women in the class, and they're in better shape than me, and that really does motivate me to really work out hard. Because women can be in some shape, boy. And I'm just like, yeah, I may be one of the oldest people in the class, but I'm still like y'all, but I want to be in shape. And it's something that I'm enjoying. So I'm fighting the good fight of faith. I rebuke cookout in the name of Jesus. I don't want it to close, but I rebuke it.
Any general words of encouragement or advice for couples getting married later in their 40s and creating blended families with kids on both sides?
I think that if you're, and I've said this before, and I say it in the book. I wrote 2 books. I've written quite a few books, but the 2 books I wrote on relationships. My best-selling book is called Real Love Dating. I've sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies of this book. But the best book I've ever written is this Real Love Marriage book. And it's a thicker book, as you can see. The Real Love Dating book is a thinner book. They cost the same. Sadly enough, I've sold this book way more in white churches than in black churches, and I think that some of that is a testimony to just kind of the state of black marriage in America today. But this Real Love Marriage book is probably the best book I've ever written, and really does break down kind of what it really means to be married. I think that we have to find someone else to define it besides just us. That's the challenge of it. I talk about sex. There's 2 whole chapters on sex in this book. And really on what marriage really is and what it's not. One of the things I talk about in this book, I don't know if I talk about it in the dating book, but I know I talk about it in the marriage book, is that the benefit of being younger and getting married is you're more flexible. The benefit of being older and getting married is you know yourself. You have a good sense of yourself. A lot of times younger people get into trouble because they don't really know themselves. So they're picking people, and it's not long lasting because they're not even set yet. They're still growing and changing, and they don't know themselves well enough to know what they really need. Whereas older couples or older people know who they are. You're 45 years old. You know who you are. You know what you like. You know what you don't like. You know what your strengths are. You know what your weaknesses are. It ought to give you a better opportunity to pick someone that's going to be compatible and also add to where you're weak, to complete your team. But the challenge of being older is you're less flexible. You're just not as flexible. And so you're a little more set in your ways. I was having a conversation with a young man just the other day, and we were talking, he's new to North Carolina, and we were talking about just his wife's transition into North Carolina. And I was saying to him, yeah, man, I mean, we all have to be patient because it's different if you go live in a new place when you're 18 or 19 or 20. You go away to college. That's different. It's a lot harder to make that change when you're 42. That's hard. We're just not as flexible when we get older. And that can be a challenge. So if you're in your 40s and you're trying to marry someone else and they're in their 40s, you both have a set idea of the way that the world should go, and you can be less flexible as a result of it. I also think a factor is how long you've been by yourself. Because a man's world and a woman's world is different. So if I was dating a woman, let's say, for example, that if I was single right now and I was dating, I probably would be more amenable to dating a woman who had been married or was coming out of a marriage herself or coming out of a lengthy marriage herself, because I would know that she understands what a guy's world is like. Whereas a woman who has spent the last 15 years single doesn't understand the harsh realities of a guy's world. Any woman that's watching this who lives with a man, you know that in a lot of ways, men suck. And you've adapted to it. Whereas all the single ladies who are just working, making their money, doing their thing, got their friends, and when they step into a guy's world, guys' worlds they're sucky. It's not good. It's not necessarily a fun world. Every now and then it just backs up on my wife, because my wife, when my daughter Kayla and Alex got married and left the house, and then Kayla went to college, my wife was in the house with me and 3 boys. It's four dudes walking around, scratching and moving, adjusting on a regular. It's just seats are all up. It's a different world. It got to her a little bit sometimes. And I think that cuts the other way as well. There is a way that you communicate when you are with a woman, especially a woman that you love and respect. can't just say anything that comes out to your head. You do have to be thoughtful. You do have to be considerate. You have to let somebody know where you are. That goes for both people, but definitely as a guy. You just are like, okay, I'm here, all right, I'm getting ready to leave, and from here I'm getting ready to go here, and you need me to do anything. It's like I don't just, when I leave the office, I don't just go home. I call. Hey, what's up? You need me to pick up Kerwin? You need me to grab anything? I'm on my way in. It's a life of consideration. It's being considerate. It's being thoughtful. You're not just living by yourself and doing whatever dude thing you want to do and answering to no one but you. So I feel like if it's a guy that's been in a relationship with a woman that was lengthy, whether he's divorced now or his wife passed away, at least you know, hey, yeah, he's got some good years under his belt of living with a woman. It's not going to be a stark baptism. He understands. Women get tired. She understands. Guys don't want to talk all the time. I just don't want to talk. I want to sit here and just not talk. And can you just sit here and just be chill and just smile and bring me some coffee or a sandwich and just sit down and not say anything? So how's your day? So what happened? What's wrong? I just want to be quiet. So, I think for people who are dating later, I think it's for people who are trying to remarry, I think it's important to break your patterns. Like a fool returns, like a dog returns to his own vomit, so a fool returns to his folly. That's Bible. That's Solomon. You can't go back and be with the exact same person or a similar person to that again. You was with somebody and they broke your heart. You need to, when you re-up, you need to re-up with a different kind of guy, a different kind of woman. But you need to be getting loose and getting flexible. All right, 12:30. It's been an hour. It's been a nice foray back into the third degreeness. Had a blast with you. Tune in next week. And maybe I'll have a guest or something like that. I don't know, but it's been great. Keep the faith.